What is going on, everybody? Xtimus here. So today I'm going to be showing you an amazing budget Zealer Paladin, and we're going to be playing this on the public test realm for the upcoming patch 2.4. For timestamps, you guys can check out the description below, and if you want to see the complete build guide as far as attributes, items, and skills, you guys can see all of that information in the description below. Let's just get started with the video. So starting off with the items here, we're going to go over the weapons first. My favorite weapon to use on this build is Zakarum's Hand. This is another very cheap item in the Diablo 2 trading community. However, you are going to have to upgrade it, so you're going to have to get a Pull Rune, a Lum Rune, and a Perfect Emerald. It's really going to do extremely well, and you will probably get this item almost for free. Some people will just give it away. A chance to cast a level 5 Blizzard on striking. This really helps out with some AoE crowd control right there. It also has Ignore Target's Defense, which is really important for melee characters. Another really important stat that's very difficult to get is that mana stolen per hit. I always talk about this in melee builds. It's very important to have mana stolen per hit for your survivability because you need to constantly be attacking monsters or else you're going to be losing a lot of health. I would suggest that you put a Shale Rune in there because this is going to make sure that you hit the break point for the fastest attack speed with Zeal. Going over to the helmet here, we're using Gface. This is definitely one of the most overpowered helmets in the game. It gives 30% faster hit recovery, 35% chance of crushing blow, and 15% deadly strike. And as far as those stats go, this should be one of the rarest items in the game, but it's just a very easy item to find and people sell it for very cheap. And moving on here, this is my favorite item in the build, is the Atma's Amulet. This is another item that's very cheap in the trading community, and the reason why that this is the best part of the build and my favorite item in the build is because it has a chance to cast a level 2 amplified damage on striking. And what this does is it removes 100% physical resistance from monsters. Now, a lot of people will actually use a Act 2 mercenary instead, and they will get a Reaper's Toll. And that's going to be a lot more expensive in the beginning of a ladder reset. And the thing is with Decryptify is that it removes 50% physical resistance from monsters, when the Atmas with the amplified damage will remove 100% physical resistance, and that's just absolutely amazing. And trust me, when you test out this build, you're really going to see how much damage your character is going to be doing because of this curse amplified damage. And the next item is Griswold's Honor. Now, if you want to get perfect resistances, you want to make sure that you get this and you put 3 perfect diamonds in there. This is probably going to be one of the most expensive items in the build. And if you can't get a Griswold's Honor, I would suggest that you get this shield right here, the Blessed Circle, and put 2 perfect diamonds in there. And this is just going to be just as good as Griswold's, pretty much. You're just going to be lacking some resistances there if you use the Blessed Circle, and you're really going to need Griswold's Honor if you're going to be doing Uber Tristram. So I would just try to get Griswold's, but the Blessed Circle is going to be good as well. And moving on here, we're using Laying of Hands, one of the most overpowered gloves for a melee character in Diablo 2, and the reason for that is because it gives 350% damage to demons, which is very overpowered. And going on to the ring is Ravenfrost. I would say about 9 out of 10 melee builds are going to use Ravenfrost because it has Cannot Be Frozen. This is really important because you really don't want to get frozen by any cold monsters in the game, because you're going to be moving very slow, and then it's just going to lower everything. It's going to lower your attack speed, your run speed, so you really want to make sure that you always have Cannot Be Frozen on any melee character. And as far as the belt goes, you can pretty much use whatever belt you want. It's not going to make or break the build. I'm using this belt right here because it gives 7% life stolen per hit, and there's just a lot of other really good choices out there. Immortal King's belt is another belt that's very, very good all around. It has really high resistances, and it gives you a boost to strength, and that might even get you the perfect resistances using the Blessed Circle if you have the Immortal King's belt on. And another belt that I also have and use for Uber Tristram is Thunder God. stats, so you really don't need to worry about the belt too much. The main reason why I'm using this one is just to get some more survivability there with that 7% life stolen per hit. And moving on here, the Carrion Wind is another really cheap ring in the trading community. It's an item that people throw away all the time. It's just a really cheap item to get, and you want to make sure you get one that has 9% life stolen per hit. And moving on here with the boots, we're using Goreriders. This is probably the #1 boots that people use for melee characters. 15% chance of crushing blow, deadly strike, and open wounds. And for the armor, we're using Duress. This is a really nice cheap armor that you can get, and it just requires an Amn Rune. The Shale and the Thole are really easy to get, and the main reason why we're using this is for the 15% chance of crushing blow. Crushing blow is a very overpowered stat in Diablo 2 for melee characters, and you really want to get as much crushing blow as you can get, because it really does a ton of damage. We also have some chance to open wounds right there, and it has some really nice resistances as well. It's just all around a really good item to have. And I have Treachery in my stash as well. You could either use one of these two, but I really like to use Duress to get that extra 15% chance of crushing blow. One of the things that I actually do is I'll put on Treachery and I'll proc Fade, and then I'll actually put Duress back on just so I can get some really good survivability going there with resistances. And one thing to know about Fade is not only does it give you resistances, it gives you a hidden bonus to physical resistance. And then on Switch, we have the Puzzler Staff. This is really amazing because it has 69 charges to teleport. Just make sure you collect a lot of gold, and this is just going to be amazing for you if you want to teleport around. I'm not saying you're going to be able to teleport all the time, because it's really going to cost a lot of gold to repair those charges. But if you're doing something like chaos runs and you just want to get there really quick, and you can just hit W and just switch to it, and you can have teleport down here on your right. So just make sure you manually have teleport there when you have the Puzzler Staff on, and then you could just hit W and switch between your weapon and your shield and just go to teleport at any time if you want to just move around more quickly or get away from monsters or whatever you need to do. Now also in my stash, I have a Demon Limb. Now this is going to give you some enchant charges there, and this is really going to increase your attack rating if you need it. And you can also buff your mercenary as well. So usually every time right before I go into battle, I'll just put it on, and then I'll click on my skills, just like the Puzzler Staff with teleport. I'll just click on my skills on the right, go over to enchant, then I'll enchant myself and enchant my mercenary. Then we'll get a little bit of extra damage there and some nice attack rating. And I'll switch back to my Puzzler Staff just so I can get some teleport. Now moving on to the mercenary here, he is using Azurewrath. Now Azurewrath is really going to be one of the most expensive items in this build, but I really recommend it because it just does a ton of damage. And the most important thing is that we have that level 13 Sanctuary Aura. Now what that is going to do is it's going to constantly remove physical resistance from undead monsters. Now I know that we have amplified damage here, and that's already removing physical resistance from monsters by 100%. The Sanctuary Aura will remove physical resistance by 100% to undead monsters, but the thing is that it's always going to be on, so the aura is always going to be casting, and you can just guarantee at all times that undead monsters are going to have negative 100% physical resistance. And not only that, Sanctuary Aura adds around 500% enhanced damage to undead monsters. The Sanctuary Aura is just absolutely amazing to have, especially if you're doing chaos runs. There's a lot of undead monsters in the game, and you're also going to need to have this Azurewrath because you're going to be using it for Uber Tristram. And then as far as his armor goes, we're using Treachery. This is just all around amazing. Now this is a really important part of using the Act 5 Mercenary on this build. You need to make sure you have Crown of Thieves. Do not use anything else because you're going to need the dexterity to wear the Phase Blade. Now you really have to be a high level to actually have enough dexterity to use a Phase Blade without Crown of Thieves. So I'm just going to assume that you're going to be around level 80, and just you need to make sure you have Crown of Thieves most of the time. But you could just check it out if you really want to change the helmet over time. Just make sure you keep an eye on that dexterity without a helmet on, and you can just know whether you can use something else like Andariel's But Crown of Thieves is actually really good, and it's just another item that you're going to be able to get really cheap. So going over here to the skill tree, we're going to start off with the combat skills. You want to put 20 points into Sacrifice, 20 points into Zeal, 20 points into Holy Shield, and then 20 points into Fanaticism. Now moving over here to the defense auras, you want to make sure that you put 2 points at least into Salvation, and this is going to allow us to have perfect resistances against Uber Mephisto. So it's really important, make sure you put 2 points into Salvation. And then as far as the rest of the points, if you have any left over, you could put them into Defiance, and what that's going to do is it's going to increase your defense. And as far as the attributes go, we're going to put enough points into Strength to use all of our gear, and we want to put enough points into Dexterity to make sure that we have max block. So you just want to make sure right there that you have your Holy Shield casted before you put enough points in there to get that 70% chance to block. So just keep putting points into Dexterity. Like, just make sure that you watch it, and then as soon as it hits 75%, you don't need to put any more points into Dexterity. Any extra points into Vitality and Energy, none. Alright, so I'm just going to show you really quick how to play a Zealer Paladin, and I'm just going to show you the skills real quick and just show you just how to play the build. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have Zeal on your left skill right here and have it set as F1. And then on your right skill, you want to make sure that you have Fanaticism as F2. And then F3, I have Salvation, and this is going to be used for Uber Tristram if you do Uber Tristram. And then F4, I have Charge, and this is so you can run around the world very quickly. And then as far as F7, you want to use this so you have Holy Shield. Just make sure you have that casted at all times, and it will eventually fade away. So make sure you just check on that and make sure that it's always casted on your Paladin. What you want to do is just make sure you have Zeal on your left and Fanaticism on the right. We'll just get into this gameplay demo real quick and show you guys how powerful this build really is. So now I'm just going to show you some quick gameplay of the Zealer budget Paladin, and we're just going to start off here with players set to 4. That's a good area, I think, for this build. You can do players 8, but I think the clearing speed is going to be a little bit slow. So before we get started, I usually just buff up my mercenary with the demon limb, and I use enchant just to give him some more attack rating. And I switch back to the teleport staff, and then I put on teleport, so then I can just hit W, the W key, and I can just teleport whenever I want. And also the mercenary's AI is usually pretty bad. You can see I don't even know where he is, but now he's up here. And sometimes I just use teleport to just get him into battle. I feel like right now the mercenary just isn't even in the battle. They should really try to work on the mercenary AI for sure. So now we're going to do Uber Tristram. The items that you need are Angelic Amulet, Angelic Ring, Drax, Thunder Gods, and you have to use the Azurewrath that your mercenary was using. So we're going to put that on and put all of this gear on, and just make sure that you replace Carrion Wind with Angelics. So we'll just go over the gear really quick here. So I'm using, for Uber Tristram, we're using Azurewrath, Gface, Angelic Amulet, Griswold Shield, Goreriders, Angelic Ring, Thunder Gods, Ravenfrost, Duress, and Drax. And we're going to be using Treachery to buff us with Fade, and we're going to be using Demon Limb to buff us with Enchant. Usually I like to open Uber Tristram over here by Mala, because by the time I start killing Diablo, usually I need to go back to town to get some more health pots and mana pots. So we're just going to put on Treachery, and we're going to go over here and just stand in the fire until we get the Fade buff. Alright, so now that we have Fade, let's cast Holy Shield, put Duress back on, put Demon Limb on, and use Enchant for that attack rating. You have to make sure you use Enchant because you're really going to need that attack rating to be able to do this fight. And if we want to, we could switch back to the teleport staff and just have that there when we want to teleport. Run to this area right here, and then when we see Mephisto start to come out, we're going to fight him up here. And we're going to have F2 on Fanaticism and F3 on Salvation. Salvation is going to give us perfect lightning resistances versus Uber Mephisto. Usually I just switch between the two. It kind of just depends what's going on. Right when the fight starts, I have Fanaticism on so I can get some more attacks in, so there's a higher chance that I get life tap right away, and then I'll switch over to Salvation. So I kind of just switch between the two during the fight based on what's going on. And we got really lucky and got life tap right away. That doesn't always happen. So, and really just try to not panic. Do not run around, just continuously attack Mephisto, and you're not going to be able to kill him every time. You won't get lucky every single time. There will be times where you just die, and it's just not gonna work the first time. And then we're going to go all the way over here, and we're going to pull Baal, and we're going to have him teleport in this area over here. We're going to pull him over here as well, so then we don't pull Diablo or any of his minions. And we're getting really unlucky there with life tap, and I'm running out of pots, so we're going to go back to town and just get some pots.
My brothers will not have died in vain.
Baal is usually really easy, and just as I said before, I mean, sometimes life tap just does not want to cast when you really need it to, and sometimes things like that just happen in Uber Tristram. That's just one thing like a good reminder whenever you do Uber Tristram, even with a really good smiter build, whatever it is, sometimes you're just going to get very unlucky and sometimes things just happen. And we're gonna go all the way around this way on this side to where there's no monsters right now. And we're gonna go take out Diablo. And since too much time has passed, our fade went away. So I'm gonna put Treachery back on. And I'm just gonna try to get fade really quick from these monsters over here. And again, as you can see, we're just getting really unlucky as far as life tap goes. Probably don't need to have fade against Diablo, but just to be safe, I was trying to get it. We'll just take him out. Got a Barbarian Torch. And there we go. Alright, that's about it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build. This is one of my favorite builds that I've ever made, and I worked really hard on it, and it just really means a lot to me, and I put a lot of passion and effort. Super excited to present this build to everybody in the Diablo 2 community. I just want to thank everybody so much for watching the video. Make sure you subscribe if you want to keep up with Diablo 2 content, and I love all of you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.